good. Right. Let's cheers, brother.
Mm-hmm.
We're in. I think we're good to go.
All right.
Cheers, bro.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. You've been wanting to do this for ages.
I've asked about 20 times, I think.
You're the second person that's invited yourself on. I'm not going to name the other person.
I thought there would be a lot more.
Nah, just ask other people to come on, man. Yeah. So it's good to see you, man. Because the issue with you is you're not in New Zealand, so we've been wanting to do this, but waiting for the time to be right.
That's right.
For you to actually be here so we can do it, because I bloody hate the Zoom stuff, and doing
Not the
stuff. It's not intimate. I like the intimacy of being able to talk one-on-one and look in people's eyes and have a really decent conversation about it all, and the ones we did on Zoom actually ended up really, really good, like Hardy.
Came across well.
Yeah, Hardy and Botsy, it was great, it was a really good one. Sunny Chan was a really good one. I even saw him yesterday and it was like, it'd be really good if we could...
V2, 2.0.
Yeah, could do second episodes and stuff maybe, so we do that with Hendo and so we'll see how it all goes. I mean, so you and I, like our history has pretty much gone back as far as most, I think, and a lot of guys probably won't know, where you first started.
Sure.
You and I first met. You played. Well, why don't you tell us, man? Like, where you first, like, how did you start off getting into indoor? When did that all first start? Did you start outdoor? Did you play a bit of outdoor cricket?
Bit of outdoor, yeah, through club cricket, Takapuna with the Hitchcocks. Actually, Auckland under-18s with Corey Todd, who's here this weekend.
Oh, wow.
So that's been good to reconnect with
That's
my
cool.
Former opening bowling partner, the Toddy. So I was going after school to get picked up to get a lift home from school from my mum, and the factory that my mum worked for was next door to ICA Glenfield. So I used to hang out there playing pinball and got pulled in to play some games while she was finishing work. And I think you would have been umpiring at the patch or running around the cricket patch down the road, or sort of 10 minutes
similar
away.
stuff. Yeah.
Until Walshy and Botsy purchased ICA Glenfield and rebranded it as North Harbour Indoor Cricket, which you guys, I understand, just had your 10-year anniversary a couple of weekends ago?
30. We're into 30. Well, no,
Sorry.
past 30 years now. Like
30?
Yeah, no, it's like it was 1990 when those guys
that long.
bought the centre. So what are we now? 32 years celebrating. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man. Like, it was... the patch was awesome. Like, we've spoken on other episodes about cricket patch, and a really unique setup there, where it was sort of an end. One court was on one way and one court was the other way, and all the mezzanine and downstairs was all in the centre.
Sit upstairs and watch, but good views, I remember.
And it was brick wall either side, like
Yes.
a foot and a half away from the net was brick wall. So to get an intensity of noise and volume of noise, and that, it felt like
Intense.
500 people were in there, but
intense.
it was only 30, right? But at the same time, back then you could smoke and drink a lot of DB drugs and stuff, like, it was everywhere.
And people had those mini kegs, remember that?
Yeah. No, I don't. No, I don't.
I
remember
do.
that.
I do.
But you do. So it was really cool atmosphere then, but things politically fell over there a little bit with Botsy and Walshy deciding to go and buy Glenfield ICA and then turn it into North Harbour Indoor Sports, and that was really where the legacy started, man.
That's right.
And that's where we sort of all got joined together, and you guys had a small little group, good group of guys, and then we ended up joining together and becoming what was
Colts.
Started
with Colts,
pretty
didn't we?
formidable sort of unit. It was a weird setup. Like, I mean, you and I made I made the comment before, it was really tough, weird sort of times for me. Like, I wasn't probably the easiest person to get on with, but I also found like I was getting, it's just really hard to mould together sometimes when you're young guys. It's really competitive as well. You might be fighting for spots in a side, and you all know you're pretty good. But then, you're trying to make things work, but it's just not working, and, you sort of can end up being a little bit of an outlier on it sometimes.
Well, we used to sort of run things ourselves in many ways. We didn't have the same support structure that I see today, and it's amazing. We didn't have as many great managers and coaches. That sort of opportunity was very distant for us. You know, we used to self-coach, manage, organise logistics. Occasionally we'd get the Wayne and Okers or the Keith and Okers coming along to a training on a Sunday morning and make us run up and down the courts. But, you know, today it's great to see guys like Hardy giving back to the game, or Bots recently coming back to, I think it was provincials or Tri, I'm not sure what you call it anymore.
You got asked to be part of that Hawke's Bay unit, which is really cool.
And having that sort of level of mentorship to lean on is significant, but we didn't really have a lot of that. We had some of the players, but even the players were young, you know. If you look at the guys that were our captain of Harbour and the men's side, we had Tony Watkins. So we had players that were sort of doing everything from booking flights to booking hotel rooms, minivans, everything. It was somewhat different. Whereas today there's been a greater level of professionalism at the sort of national level that we didn't really have. So great to see the guys today just having to focus on cricket, not all the other things around it so much.
I just remember those tournaments weren't badly organised or anything though. Like, we always stayed at pretty good places, and I think Walshy probably had in the background had a bit to do with that. Like he really he cared so much about the players, and he just he just wasn't a financially focused guy. He was a player focused guy. He knew that if his centre was full of fun loving people who really loved it, the money thing would probably take care of itself. You know, they just were so passionate about it.
Yeah, creating the culture, isn't it? That's the key. And I think the smart business operators that are in the position to own centres get that. We saw that with Valley when I left Harbour and moved to Wellington. It was very similar. Where the Kellys back then were running the Valley Centre, were the first people to put beers on the bar and some food on the bar after people had been training or playing, or if we'd won a big game. And people wanted to be part of that.
Yeah, back when you could drink a couple and drive home.
That's right. Not that I did.
But different now.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Like in those Harbour days, we were the players that we were blessed to be around. Like before, like I distinctly remember when almost a second generation of the Colts came through in the 94 sort of era. But before that, we even had a really pretty, real amazing sort of group of guys with Dean Parker, JK, Jeremy Kearney.
Spencer.
Yeah, Spence was Spence came over maybe 94, 95 though, or maybe a little bit after. So it's... It was sort of like it was a bit of a blessing when the Herman boys came in. Andre Adams came in from that younger team. Marcel
from the
was
Party
around
Boys
as well, from the
in-house
the Party
team.
Boys, the in-house team called the Party Boys. Lovely. Yeah, so they were standout. As soon as you saw them play, man, you were like, wow, these guys got something pretty special, eh? So
when they weren't playing, they were training or playing 100 in-house games as much cricket as they could get, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we did. We didn't really know what we were doing for jobs and careers, and that wasn't the pinnacle of what we were trying to do back then. And so we sort of found ourselves in and around indoor cricket, which was a safe environment. We had guys like Bots and Shane Walsh around us and others, and some good mentors like the Jensens, or Tony Watkins for me was a guy that's still involved in cricket, but he was always sort of looking after the younger guys and making sure that we were on the straight and narrow. And, I do tribute a lot of where I am today and what I do for work on those days, because there's a lot of people that haven't been as fortunate as what we were in that environment.
What do you remember about the time? Like, we were sort of playing Colts cricket, but then we got split up in the men's thing. We got sort of split up a little bit, eh? You guys, and then I was split off a little bit into this superstar men's team for some reason.
That's right.
And there was a little bit of a divide there. And Bots and I had a chat about that period where he really felt that...
too much too soon?
Yeah. I look at it a little bit differently. I think that it wouldn't have been too much too soon if perhaps they'd looked after me a little bit better in some areas. And it was really different. It was in one way they just went, you know, when you're bowling for it, you just do what you do when you bowl. Like they said nothing about what to do when I was bowling. They just knew that I could go off and go and bowl, right?
Right.
And it was similar to you back in the day as well. Well, you were and guys don't quite picture this, but you were a genuine quick bowler, real sharp back in those days before your body fell over, you know, and didn't allow you to do it anymore. But you were genuine heat, and I just got allowed to go and do what I wanted to do and with the ball, and they supported me and just felt like I was going to be the gun guy for them. And on the total flip side with the bat, it was just all nervous, anxious.
Yeah, look at you now, opening the batting and reverse role, isn't it? Somewhat.
It's a little bit reverse. I mean, it's probably there's a long journey between then and what I do now. I suppose a lot's happened. A lot's happened around my batting. But even when I was playing for New Zealand men's, you know, wasn't the best batter around ever. You know, like always struggled, and a lot of it was about I can do this, but there's a lot of anxious feelings, you know, from opposition, knowing that they could really get in and know where my weaknesses were, and then if I let my guys down, that was a really big thing for me, letting my teammates down. And you know, I was one of the worst guys for decision making, shot selection, decision making, but we didn't even discuss that sort of stuff as a player.
It's a
It's
different
so
world.
young and so different, you know.
Very different.
Now we talk about shot selection and just what you do when and the right times, and it comes with
Now
experience.
people are talking about how you feel when you're playing. How do you feel when you're holding the bat? That was something we'd never heard of. Right? We just used to go out and bat, bowl, and field.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, thankfully that the players today coming through have gone through the progression of the Stone Ages through to where it is today in the modern era, and it's great to see.
Yeah. And we played in an era of rah-rah too, you know, the real get hyped up and
Fights,
really get
too much aggression.
a lot of aggression.
Don't know where that came from, but
I think we saw it in how the men's game was played, you know, but they were men. They were men doing it. We were kids running around trying to pick fights and not really knowing how to handle it, you know. Balls were too big in a way, where we just instead of focusing on how to become a better cricketer, and this is what's so cool about the way that Colts guys or the younger 17, 18-year-olds that come through now, there's no in-your-face stuff at all, you know. It's just about...
It's become technical. It's become about the game, which is the beauty of it, right? Where we felt that having a physical dominated game, when we used to play Royal Oak, you know, the Harbour Royal Oak days, that was like a test match, Super League, or Auckland Champs finals. That was what you wanted to play for, but it was very physical and in people's face. But today it's more about the cricket.
It absolutely is.
Thankfully.
Well, it's about just how do players get the best out of themselves.
Well, and you guys talk these days more about getting indoor cricket on TV, right? And we all want that for the sport to get more global coverage, and people are not interested in seeing all of that sort of behind-the-scenes banter. They want to see good cricket. They want to see great fielding, great bowling, great athleticism, planning, structure. They don't want to see that other stuff. And so it's great to see that it's been completely eradicated from the game, and umpires have full control, as they should, and any of that, and you're off, and you're losing runs. And when that happens, when you play at New Zealand level, I'm sure that you won't play again, or you're not playing for a few tests before you're allowed to come back.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been eradicated. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned some players before that we'd played in and around, and the guys I guess were idols for us. Who are the guys that really stood out for you, man? Like when you first were coming through in that Colts and the early men's stuff. Like when was your first men's game? Do you remember your first men's year? 92? 93 maybe?
Yeah, 92. I was playing Colts and men's, so I was filling in occasionally, and Boyd Jensen was captain, keeping, playing for Harbour before he moved to Wellington. Guys like Al McLaren were around, Phil Hollings. But I think in terms of the guys that were our age, or we ended up continuing to play against at men's level, you know, Rocket from Palmy North sort of stands out as being...
Robbie Roxton.
Yeah. He was
awesome,
always the competitor, the Harbour Valley days. You know, the Robbie Birds, Craig Fosters, Shane Baddocks, Stu Watkins, the Nico Perez, Colin Owens. You know, that whole Valley setup seemed to be well orchestrated. Before that, it was Kirby at Petone and Billy, who you interviewed recently on your last couple of podcasts, Billy Murray. That was always difficult, and back then I think Heath Davis was still playing for Petone, so that was always a struggle. I think guys that were around us at Harbour, I was very fortunate to captain you guys when we had you, Andre Adams, Paul Herman, Brian Herman, to call upon to grab the ball when we needed some help. So could always tell that you guys were talented and going to do well. So it was interesting that Andre then was torn between outdoor and indoor. It was always a challenge. We're like, no, come play a bit more indoor and forget about the outdoor. We want you to play with us. But
it was a funny period for Andre, because he I remember him and I went to play cricket overseas together in '95. And so both of us were out of the indoor scene where you guys were still playing here, and then came back in the '96, and that was when I think Spen.
I don't think we were winning when you guys went and did that.
Probably the way. And then Spencer Thorpe came over,
right.
who was just an absolute weapon from England, and he immigrated over with his family in '96. And it was in that period that we sort of started doing really well at tournaments, and Andre and I in particular, Brian Herman as well, started getting sort of recognised in that New Zealand sort of set up and maybe potential to get in, and then made our debuts. And I mean, Brian was 18 in that in '98. Was I right in saying that?
Yeah, he was 18.
18 years old, and he was only second to Robbie Kerr, the captain, as a keeper.
Oh, there was other Nathan Daly was around, just sort of really getting noticed with the boys at Alice Street back then, I think it was. When Robbie O and Hale, Homie, Styrus was playing, if you remember.
96. He played in '95 World Cup.
But he was playing Super League and played a few North Islands and Nationals as well. Daryl Tuffy was playing. So there was a few outdoor guys that were popping in and out in various parts of the country, also Canterbury. I remember Chris Nevin was playing also occasionally for out of Wellington, Petone or Valley, I can't remember. There was a number of great outdoor-indoor players that were around. It was tough.
There is a history of a lot of really good outdoor players playing in indoor. I think for Andre, when that '98 World Cup, which was, and I've said this before to Hendo, I think it was, or maybe Kirby, that it would be great to talk to Andre about that '98 period, because I've never really talked to him directly about it.
Right.
Where in the first game he got injured against, I think it was England. Might be wrong there, but it might be I think England in that first '98 game, and did his shoulder, was out for the rest of the tournament. Couldn't have asked for a better teammate for the rest of that tournament because of the guy that he is. Right, it's just Andre. And did everything he could to contribute for the rest of that tournament. Yet inside must have been just hurting so much. But he was so young at that age as well, and to handle himself like that was just unquestionable. It was just amazing. But that whole period from there, and then 3 years later, he's representing New Zealand in one-day cricket and in Test cricket as well, taking fifers against England. And it were really big. Like what happened inside with Andre, because he was a really determined guy already. What happened, apart from some great performances in outdoor cricket, he turned around that so quickly, from massive shoulder injury to then having a couple of really good outdoor seasons. Didn't play a lot of indoor after that. I can't remember 99, 2000 and playing a lot of outdoor.
Wasn't allowed too much, I don't think. As much as you wanted to.
And then in 2001, we're all like cheering on the screen watching Lou Vincent smash hundreds against Australia in his debut, and then Andre's in a one-day series playing against Australia. Like, just incredible, man. Like, so cool. And really, it was quite an emotional period actually for me watching those guys, Andre in particular, who who I'm very, I feel, even now where I haven't
Pretty
really
close to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
You guys batted a lot together for
yeah,
Harbour.
we did. Yeah, we did.
I think
we
I batted
three.
you third, yeah, most of the
We
time.
batted 3 together for a bit, and in the national, our first nationals win in '98, we batted 3.
Mm-hmm.
Did okay.
Mm.
But I remember in particular we bowled exceptionally at that, and we had a great coach in Sean Perkinson coming back and coaching us in that year as well. And yeah, it'd be great anyway. To my point, it'd be great to talk to Dre about that.
The transition.
Yeah, just what happened.
Probably a bit of a whirlwind if you asked him about it. I think it's like most players, that's the unexpected, and they don't really plan for it. They sort of get caught up with it and try and keep up with it the best they can. But I mean, Andre found fitness. I remember that. When we were playing indoor together, he was always.
He got quite strong though.
He got very strong, very fit, very fast, and realised that was a passage. I remember him saying, lose weight, Chiz, do some running with me, drink less, and I probably didn't value it then. And he saw it very, very early. I valued it when I got older, and probably valued it more in the last 10 years. I've been fitter in the last 10 years than I was, back then. But I think that passage saw him through to playing so much first-class cricket, I think to the ripe age of maybe 40, 41? No, 38. I think he was 38 when he finished, but not many people can say they've done that and still look as good as he did.
Well, before we...
and have less injuries than us.
That's right. Yeah. They're doing more than what we did as well. Before we move back onto you, mate, let's just... I'd like to finish off with Andre, but that...
He had his podcast. He had his turn.
No, he didn't have a podcast. No, he'll have a podcast. Hopefully one day.
I thought he had.
Yeah, if he moves back home from Sydney, or I get to fly over there or something, he might fly me over. The amount of money he's on,
we can sponsor you.
Yeah, maybe we'll work something out. You're taking me to the Maldives. Remember,
That's
I'm not
true.
forgetting that.
That's
by
true.
The way.
Solar panels.
Yeah. So let's not forget with Andre Adams, he is the second highest first-class wicket taker in New Zealand history, behind the Sir Richard Hadley.
Yeah, not many people know that.
Well, hopefully a lot more people know that now because it's the second time I've mentioned it, and with my 3 or 4 listeners that I have. But he unbelievable effort. He played he's impressed people in England. He's impressed people in Australia. He's impressed people here. It's just amazing. It's just so cool to see a guy achieve
just
that.
a guy out of Westlake Boys, out of North Harbour Indoor Sports, just doing his thing.
I said before, not many people know this, but you and I were the 2 quicks out of Harbour. 2 young guys coming through that were really, had something a little bit different. Now, I know how I got my pace. I was trying to bowl what I could in outdoor cricket, and I was in an environment that was just completely stuffed up. Where I was an outlier. I wasn't the guy inside the click group, and so I always felt like I was out of the mix a little bit, and ended up playing a bit of outdoor with bots of all people, and just mucking around third, second grade sort of men's stuff, and trying to bowl as quick as I could. Actually, it ended up doing okay, but ended up getting a stress fracture in my lower vertebrae in my back, and played on it for 6 months. Because I couldn't give it up. I just had to keep playing.
What do I do?
You just what do I do? I'll just keep playing and see if it works itself out. Yeah. So, and then got some advice on it, and saw a physio called David Abercrombie in Takapuna, who was the All Blacks physio at the time. Unbelievable how I got into that. And he was amazing. Saw a couple of his physios there, and got his advice on it and stuff. I only took 3 months off before I started playing indoor again. I was so lucky. Some guys that would end their ability to be able to bowl again. So I never ever forget that. I'm so thankful that I've been able to do what I can. That was at the age of 16, and then so 3 months later, got to start playing a little bit of indoor and going, oh yeah, this is actually feeling okay. Changed my action a little bit to compensate for it, but ended up getting away with it.
And didn't you do some swimming? I remember.
Yeah, so swimming was a big one. So if I can give any advice to anyone who is got a good action, has got some okay pace and wants to get a yard and a half quicker, go and swim 30 lengths, 40 lengths, 2-3 times a week.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be massive, maybe twice a week. Do that for about 2 or 3 months, and then go back and bowl and see what happens. Like, it's
I remember you
absolutely.
I remember
the
you
best.
doing the rehabilitation work around that and coming back, and we could notice the difference. You were definitely a yard quicker when you came back after that swimming.
Yeah, that's where I started really bowling quick and letting my body go and actually bowl quick as well, because there's always that hesitation, I think, for some guys, no injuries or stuff, but just being able to run in and really just let everything go in your action and your body, and allow your body to actually go through the full action.
Natural.
And my, I did find a way to be able to do that, and I was very, very fortunate, man. Like, so, yeah, anyway, enough about that. But with you, like, where did you think you learnt to really start really getting it down? And
I mean, I read a lot of books. I was a fan of John Snow, who was a very famous
awesome.
fast bowler that most people
John
listening
Snow.
to this would have no clue about.
Love Johnson.
It was always about picking up the feet, having the rhythm, the rhyme. Obviously being from New Zealand, the Richard Hadleys and the Dennis Lillys, so I was fascinated by that. And living in a neighbourhood where we played a lot of backyard cricket, certainly played a bit with you and the Butler families, etc. And you would have a short run up from the fence to your bowling mark, and so just through that, you learnt that off a short run up, that was what you had. But I think back then, for me, it was more about aggression, Colsey. It was about channeling the fact that I was a high school dropout. I didn't have a career in mind. So cricket was what we did and what we knew. And so probably channeling a lot of that, not anger, but frustration or doubt into cricket and just wanting to bowl fast. And you talked about the aggression side of the sport. That worked for us at that time. I did the swimming, so I learnt the swimming as well and did a lot of work on that. So, yeah, I was watching guys like you and Andre. I had guys, I had Paul Hitchcock around me. So I did a lot of watching. And it's amazing how much pace you get just from the final 2 steps of a follow-through, for example. So it was about breaking it down and just taking a little bit off everyone that I could see. Back in the day when we were young, watching fast bowlers, it was just sort of emulating them to the best that you could. We didn't have video reviews, like you go to a World Cup today and everyone's giving you a disc or a USB stick with actions and different angles. I mean, we didn't have that, so you just have to stand upstairs and watch and see how people are bowling, the Darryl Tuffeys or whoever it was. And I think like you, we were watching Chris Pringle for the change-ups, and we all just copied a little bit about what we liked or what we thought we could recreate ourselves.
I was really lucky because, Chris Pringle was the first bowler that I ever saw in indoor cricket and just went, he had a strut around the court. He was only 19, 20 himself when I first watched him. And I just remember being in the back of the court at patch, just as like a 13-year-old, just being in awe of the guy, and he just bowled heavy away swingers, big, good, quick away swingers, and this off cutter that everyone just went, Pring's got this off cutter. No one else has got anything like it. No one ever bowled an off cutter. Big, fast off spinner.
Right.
Like when you talk about off cutter, because in outdoor you talk about an off cutter, and it's something that if you asked Sir Richard about it, Sir Richard Hadley, he'd go, leg cutter and an off cutter, and it's just about rolling your fingers, a little bit, in the seam, and the seam hits the other side, and it just deviates maybe 2-3 inches. Off cutter in indoor cricket is about bowling big, heavy, quick, dipping off spinners at pace, right? So that's no easy feat, right?
But I remember you were working on that toppy, and I remember you practicing it for hours. That not the top spinner, but it's like the over, and it goes straight, but it bounced more. I don't know what you called it.
So Well, I mean, that was later.
It was just another ball we couldn't hit.
It was, yeah, it was a development. It was something else that I sort of evolved down and tried to develop like a second off spinner, and didn't really discuss it too much with too many people. But
We knew.
it was just watching Pring. It was like, man, like you just pulled something. Like, where did you get that from? I'd love to talk to him about that.
Out of the hat.
Where did you start to think that a big bowling pace and trying to do what a
Save
spin?
the Last Ball. It's a great book.
Right, is it in there?
A little bit about it. He alludes to it, yeah. But you should get him on a podcast and ask him.
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. And I'm in touch with him. There's a lot of guys in the outdoor scene that I'd love to talk to who have been involved in indoor cricket. It would be great. And Andre and Pring are two of them, that's for sure. So Pring was my first, like, who I looked at it and went, no one else is bowling big, quick off cutters. Like, that'd be pretty cool to do one day, and you sort of, it was a while. I can't remember how long it was. And then I had the mix of indoor and outdoor going on. And so Danny Morrison was one of my heroes. When I was a 13-year-old, I used to go and watch Auckland A's and Auckland play one-day cricket at Eden Park, number 2, and take 3 buses to get there from Glenfield to go and watch a day. I don't know why my mum ever let me at 12, 13-year-old to... back in the day, you could do that, right? So you could just
she had much chance of holding you back, mate.
It was you just go and watch, and Danny was my hero because he had this big. He was quick. He was really quick.
Very.
And it was a bit different. And then all of a sudden, he was like in the frame for New Zealand around 84, 85, and then you're like,
But let me turn this on you, because we're seeing some young fast bowlers come through the New Zealand circuit, the Gardner brothers. If I got that right, those guys.
Braden, yeah, I mean Mitch is a really, really good bowler. I'd probably not express with all due respect, but he's a really good bowler. Braden's he's brisk. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you seeing other guys come through? Like I'm seeing the Nationals this weekend as I'm here in Wellington. Don't think I've seen anyone that's super scary yet, but we haven't got to quarterfinals, semis. Right. So guys are going to hold back, and we're going to see another couple of extra yards. Are you seeing some guys come through?
Yeah, so last year and this year in particular in indoor, there's been some guys start bowling some real heat, which has been exciting because we bowl with, ad nauseum again about this, but with the balls just not really exciting guys to really enticing and motivating guys to bowl quick, like back in the day playing with Maccas and JRBs, pivots. They were so hard that you just like it motivated you, wanted to bowl quick. If you wanted to bowl quick and you worked it out, the bowler would allow you to do it. With a Burley, unless you were bowling in the first 7 or 8 overs, you get 1 over if you're lucky. You bowl 5 and 9, and by the time it's 9, what do you want to be having an off cutter or something a bit different? Because it's just not that motivation that you're actually going to scare a couple of guys with your heat.
But are you getting to see like the under 22s and what's going on there? The guys coming through with some genuine pace.
Probably not in the 22s. The guys I've seen that are bowling the quickest guys in New Zealand's now in the men's scene. Which is really cool.
Right.
So one of the guys I watched last year in the provincials in New Zealand was Toddy Watson at Hawke's Bay. He bowled a couple of overs. I think he just decided something was just firing him up a little bit, and so he just went, I'm just going to let something go, and he bowled rapid. I mean,
Old school
the word, the words are so. You almost need to have a level, like a radar, what you would use as quick
benchmark,
and rapid, I think, is probably the word that we would all use. Like Toddy last year bowled, I think, rapid. He bowled really, like, he felt like if you were gonna get hit by him with a Burley, you would be in a bit of trouble.
Yep.
Braden Gardner has always his left arm over the wicket. His bowling in 18 against Australia in the Trans-Tasman was he went through guys. He was good. He was really, really good.
I think we saw him in Singapore in 19 in the Asia Cup.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
impressive.
brisk, and the thing about Braden is that when he's releasing it, you don't quite realise. Well, because you get a feel when you're batting against someone how they're running up and going up to release through their action about
So smooth,
how this is
isn't he?
going to come through. But he comes through about a yard quicker than what you really think it
That you
looks
expect.
like. So that he's really brisk. The guy that really excites me is Toby Finlay, and I don't want to talk too much about him because
Part of the Finlay family
yeah,
from old.
Craig
Yep.
Finlay's son.
Right.
He's got something a bit special, and like like
Is
I
he
say,
here this weekend?
Yeah, he's here this weekend, so he'll play tomorrow.
Look forward to seeing him.
There's a couple of reasons why he didn't play too much cricket today. Apparently, that's going around the traps.
He's
But
injured.
He
Tight hamstring.
apparently saw. Yeah, he's got a weak gut, but he's got the ability. He shapes the ball a long way, a bit, both ways, and he's got something about him, and he'll be something really special. And he's only 18, and that's pretty
exciting.
scary. Yeah, it's exciting and scary all at the same time. So there's some guys running around that can really, absolutely get it through, and that's exciting for me because that's sort of in my heart. I'd love to see guys bowling really quick and not just bowling cutters around the place and watching a whole bunch of down ups and
Well, I think you
dots
set the
leg.
standard for that, and a lot of us ended up trying to emulate you with the cutters. So you've got only yourself to blame there, my friend.
It's just indoor at the moment. You see some really good down up shots, and that's great, man. Like there's nothing like a really good, like an amazing down up four.
So I've got another question for you. I know you're running the show, not me, but do the rules need to change? Is there anything in the indoor sort of environment today that needs to change in terms of, as an example, you bowl 2 wides in a row, or there's a no ball and a wide, and then you get a free hit, or something to sort of follow the way that T20 has gone to make the game more viewable, a little bit more exciting, to bring the field in? Have you got views on that? Because I've heard a few of the senior players that have been around that are sort of just started to talk about it.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't thought too much in depth about it. I'd only be parroting Kirby and Hendo, who have been doing some. I think they've maybe had a bit of a think tank around that,
right?
And they've got a couple of really good ideas, and they're certainly not my ideas. They're their ideas, but they've discussed maybe doing a -3. So instead of a -5 and 6 ball overs, because I'm not a fan of 6 ball overs. I like their traditional 8 ball over
really?
game. Yeah.
Well, you like more balls to bowl, I'm sure.
Well, the thing is,
we prefer playing 6 of your, not 8 balls from you,
no.
Colsey.
The thing is, though, that I want to watch more Test cricket, not less.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to watch guys
really battle it out.
It's like everybody loves Test cricket more than one day in T20. Like T20, international T20, I think is fine. I think that's probably going to finish because no one wants to watch that. If people want to watch the game of chess in a one-day cricket, that there is in a one-day game. There's definitely a game of chess going on, and the Test cricket, everyone knows that that's the pinnacle, and any purist will say that's the pinnacle. So for me, I wonder whether there's actually an argument that at the top level, not tournament cricket, because tournament cricket has you got to fit certain for centre owners to play a tournament over four courts. You've got time slots, so you have to make it work, and you want more people to play. And you don't want less teams there. You want more teams there involved in playing. So that means 6 ball cricket for me works. But for junior cricket, and for junior cricket and top level elite of the elite cricket, I want to see 8 ball over cricket because I want the junior guys to be playing more time on court. Feeling like they don't have to do more within 6 balls.
Right.
They need to bowl more. The fielders need to field more. And they need to get more game awareness with 8 ball over cricket and understand that game of chess developing. What are you putting in this wine? We can edit it out. It's fine. We can see more of that game of chess developing with more game awareness as they're developing.
Yeah.
But at the top level, I want to see more balls from Rob Fitzgerald. I want to see him face more balls. I want to see him play more. I want to see Vinesh Bennett play more. I want to see Toby Finlay play more cricket, not less cricket.
I understand. Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, I get it.
And so I think that maybe there's a pathway forward where, World Indoor Cricket, Australia and New Zealand Indoor Cricket, and South Africa Indoor Cricket, who probably, again, with respect, the rest of the world's probably going to do what those associations decide is the way forward. Where we go, let's go back to Test cricket being 8-ball over cricket, because that's the pinnacle, men's and women's. And then there's these other formats go on, where your thoughts from Kirby and Matt Henderson come in about maybe making some changes in the. If we have 6-ball overs minus 3 cricket, so that batsmen are more aggressive. The outcome of
Less
getting
tentative.
out. Well, the outcome of getting out isn't
Risk
so.
reward.
Yeah, it's risk versus reward. Exactly right. Hendo had another rule. I actually quite like it. It's having a strike 2, not a strike 3.
Wow. Yep.
Makes sense. Even when you talk about it, right?
Just get on with it.
Yeah. So if you're on strike 2.
So he's thinking he wants the field. He wants to see more fielding outs and pressure.
He wants to see more fielding outs and more risk by the batters
and more pressure put on the batsman.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think there is a time now where the game needs to look at itself and just sort of see how it can be changed.
I don't want to break tradition. Like Test cricket should never be touched in outdoor cricket. It should never be touched. You can have some minor tweaks here and there where all the best players in the world agree to it,
Sure.
So they believe that the game is always moving forward. You want that, but not to the detriment of the game.
I mean, you and I probably want to see bowlers dominate, beat the bat, great outs, but the crowd probably want to see 7s, 3s, 4s.
Do they?
And more runs scored.
But do they?
Well, I don't know. The reason I ask that is a rhetorical question, is the best indoor games I've ever seen or been part of were the games where we scored 25 runs, 30 runs and defended it. The low-scoring games where the field and the expertise of people back flicking, run-outs, no-look, that's the stuff that I think people have missed out on over the years, because it's been dominated by the bat. It's become a batting game, where when we started, when we were young, it was a fielding game, right? And you were part of those games when we used to play, where we could defend 45 runs. Today, you've got very little hope with these balls that we're using.
Yeah,
defending 45 runs. It's very difficult.
The ball's definitely the change. There's no doubt about that.
And I think it's a shame that the expertise of the flicking or the guys at point, leg side, and that expertise and that proficient level of skills that is trained, but it doesn't come through enough because it's become a batting game. And that's great. It's great. Also great to watch the down ups, but who doesn't love seeing a great freaky back flick, left hand throw, run out down? That is interesting, and I think that's what gets the whole centre getting excited about indoor cricket.
And that's what was Kirby's point is that he had a really good analogy where they got to go and watch I think it was the warm ups before the World Cup in 2014, where they got to go and watch a warm up match of Australia play, and they played an inter squad game.
2014?
And I think it was 14, and he was the assistant coach to the girls, the 17 New Zealand girls, and which his girls were playing in. And Ben Peters, our good mate Ben Peters, was the coach of it. They got to go and watch the men's play in a warm-up game.
Right.
And you looked at the fielders in the Australian team, and it's like, wow, look at the guys who are in this. Rob Fitzgerald, you got Lyle Teskey, you got Vinesh Bennett, Floro's boys are around. I think, it's just you got guys around that court where just Lance McDougall's or whoever was there, and you're like, wow, we're going to see some really good stuff, And I think at the end of the game, they saw 3 outs in the field just because of the way that the guys bowled and batted.
I mean, back in our day, the keepers would be the game breakers, right?
Yeah, but that's because we didn't know how to run.
Right, but the
We
game's
didn't know running
evolved.
game plan.
100%, you're right. So the keeper would run out the non-striker because he's backed up too far. The game evolved. Great communication between the striker and the non-striker. And so the excitement of a keeper gloving the ball nicely down leg side and even back flicking and running the non-striker out, those days are long gone, right? So how do we replace that and get that buzz back into the field where those exciting outs come back?
Yeah,
and maybe it's the -3. I'm not sure. I'm not the professor of it. There's certainly enough wise minds around the game, but I really feel that those days were the most exciting indoor cricket days.
Yeah.
Like watching these guys that are so good at down upping off their legs and 1, 2, 2, 3. People are down upping 4. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's skillful.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure the crowd enjoys it as much as seeing a low-scoring game where there's some great outs and the pressure that you're talking about on strike 2. That could be interesting.
I'm in a bit of a conflict because I've always reflected back to outdoor cricket where you go, like if you watch an England Australia test in, wherever, let's say Adelaide, where it's a really dry, well, what traditionally was a dry test, right? But you'd still watch it with the expectation of, they're on a dry deck. They're on a batter's deck, so it's going to be 500 plus scores. Let's go and watch. And there's that expectation as a spectator where you go, we're going to see some high score and some really class batting, right? And we're going to have bowlers really work bloody hard. If they get 2, 3 for 80 odd, it's a good day, right? And the bowlers have bowled really good areas and got a bit of reward out of it. So I wonder whether you have that philosophy towards indoor cricket and you go, well, they're bowling with a Burley and we're going to see some batters who are really, really good, so they're going to hit some down up 3s and 4s, and you appreciate that like you ought to cover drive in outdoor cricket because that's an amazing shot. If you get a down up 3, like that's a really good test indoor cricket shot, right? Let alone a down up over leg. That's a great indoor cricket shot and it should be appreciated. We're not going to see a change of the ball back for a start. We're not.
Well, if you don't change the ball, then you have to look at the actual tracks, right, where bowlers get a bit of movement. But I still don't see how that really helps bring the field in, specifically. And I think we need to have a game that brings the fielders in, and the strike 2. Maybe that's great, the way to do that, because it could force players to play shots that they wouldn't ordinarily make. But that's what people want to see. They want to see the great touches at the front, at the point, leg side, or wherever it might be. That's the excitement.
The only way to do that is playing on brand new, fresh decks, and I'm not a fan of that either. So
I don't think we're going to solve it tonight, but
no, we're probably.
I certainly don't. But it's great that the fraternity of cricketers are talking about it, and you guys are in the know. You've done it all, so. Because you talked about your challenges at one point. We're not on yet.
Here we are. We're still going, mate.
Jesus Christ.
Can you pull that up?
Yeah, can you wait? I just sat down. It's been at the washroom.
Come on, man. The washroom.
Hi.
So.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things I want to move on to, but we'll. So you made a move from Harbour, and you decided to make a move down to Wellington
for work. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were getting your career up and running in the hotel industry, which is awesome. And I think Wayno sort of got you all involved in that early on, Wayno Oka, which is very amazing. Accountable. Yep. Yeah, which is amazing. And he's super smart, man. Like, he's a switched on cat. There's no doubt about that. And it's great that he sort of helped, because that's what he's about, right? You would never have known.
Got me my first job, or helped get me my first job at the Hyatt in Auckland.
So you decided to move down to Wellington, and then you shifted down, and then started playing indoor down here, and got yourself involved with the Valley, another legacy, right? The Valley legacy. And I always, brought this up with Kirby, but there always seems to be there weren't a huge amount of players down here in Wellington, but their strength was always like so good. Like they were always so strong.
Yeah, and I think if you remember when we were playing against them, we were like, these guys are so natural. They've got so much natural talent.
It's almost like they didn't care, right, when they played, but they did. But it was like they didn't.
But they trained, and I realised that when I started to get into the Valley scene, when we had 4 courts at Valley, and you'd have Robbie Bird running a session on this court doing leg side stuff. You'd have Lee Kelly running point. You'd have Stu Watkins running a line. You'd have Nico Perez running all sorts of different fielding drills. And these guys trained. They trained really hard. And,
Wow.
and we thought, and we were training really hard to try and keep up with that level. But the misconception was that there was a lot of natural people coming out of Wellington. And yes, there was some natural talent, but they worked really hard. And they were super passionate and super hardworking. And like us at Harbour, and when we played for Auckland back in '97, they were creating culture. But it wasn't complicated. It was just repetition. You'd have guys like Nico Perez throw 100 balls on a Friday night at 10 o'clock to me with my left hand. He would not accept that if I was going to play cover in replacement of him, if he was injured or not picked and I was his backup, that I couldn't throw with my left hand. That was just the way it was.
You still can't throw with your left hand.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good now.
Okay.
Not as good as Nico, but it was just what you couldn't see because it was closed doors, right? They worked hard. And then the culture that was created, and I don't know where it started because I wasn't there at the start when they were playing Colts cricket and winning Colts, and we had our battles at Colts level, but certainly from a men's level, it was Birdie and Lee Kelly and that whole Valley sort of scenario was very, very strong. And Kirby was around and playing and coaching. It was compelling, and I thought what we had at Harbour and what we were doing was pretty good when we were on our own.
They were a juggernaut. I always felt like the Valley thing was a real juggernaut, and there was something they were doing. Like they had super spectacular, talented players, but knowing what I know now around talent and hard work is that talent gets you so far, and people who work really hard will always beat just natural talent who don't work hard, right? That's the simple part of it. But if you're someone who's talented and you do work hard,
right,
then you become the Michael Jordan of your sport, really.
Yeah, you had Craig Foster would insist on selecting music. There's music blaring in the background for training, and Goon's got a reputation of being, a socialite and one of the best guys that you'll ever meet. But boy, he worked hard. He worked hard. He would have everyone hit 1,000 balls at him before a tournament. He would bowl 100,000 balls. He was on it, right? And people would just say Craig was naturally gifted. I don't think he was. I think he worked at his game.
He worked his heart out.
But he wasn't big about talking about it. He just did it behind the scenes, I know as he's my age, and we're sort of still trying to play at the highest levels we can. He'll still go down to the court and bowl 200 balls, 300 balls to get his leggy out or get the bounce out. There's no secret to that. But I do think the one thing that I learnt from Harbour, from Valley, and then tried to install in Singapore with Bots when we set up Singapore was...
We're going to get to that. We're going to get through that.
Culture, it's so valuable. And when you have a belief on the court that, let's say, Colsey doesn't bowl well, that's all right. No problem, Colsey. You've had a bad night. The next guy's got your back. And the guy after that's got your back. And it's that belief structure. And when it's so strong, no one can break it. No one can get past it. No one can penetrate it. And that's really powerful. You take that from a cricket court to a business environment, to a family environment, that's gold. And I was very fortunate to be around what we had at Harbour, and then having the ability to thankfully be accepted and be part of the Valley culture as well was amazing.
Yeah. It's really good to know that sort of stuff, man. Like, yeah, they did have an absolute culture. It's probably the first time I've brought this up on here, but like I've got this dream where.
Tell me about your dreams.
Well, my dream is that one day I own a centre somewhere. It's a 2-court. I've nicknamed it 2-court shed. Whether it's 2 courts or not, I don't know. It might be 3, it might be 4. I don't know. It depends how many people.
We should
are
talk
involved.
about this offline. I'm already
right.
I'm already buying in.
But it's like a Fight Club feel. It could be an underground dungeon somewhere. I don't know. But what I want is basically
and only fast bowlers are allowed to be part of it.
Yeah, and you got to turn up with your own pivot, with your own JRB.
Brilliant.
It's I think the whole dream is that to have this environment where people can just come and play indoor cricket. So these courts are set up for indoor cricket. There's no, with all due respect, indoor netball has an absolute place in an indoor cricket environment. The two go hand in hand for a centre. I don't. This is not about that. But this environment for me would be just a complete indoor cricket setup. So there's only lines for indoor cricket. There's only 2 doors for health and safety reasons for an indoor cricket course. One behind the keeper, one behind the back stumps, right behind at the back centre, so that you can take proper catches around the back court. Point fielder can feel like they've just got no interruption to the ball coming to them. There's no zips down the side. Like just a pure best ever indoor cricket court you could want to play on, right? There's no netball posts and stuff. There's cameras set up. It's an underground sort of Fight Club feel to it, but it's a centre that can be not for profit. It doesn't have to run at a profit. People could come in and could have a subscription. You pay $20 a month. $15 a month. I don't know what the number is, man. But you just swipe a card, come in and train.
Let me run that part of it.
You just train.
Yeah.
You just come and train. And if you're a Super League player in Auckland or an up-and-coming Super League player in Auckland...
It's kind of like an F45 business franchise model.
Yeah, but it's not a money-making exercise. It's about the sport and players being able to have a place to come and train and be better. And maybe I'm around. Or maybe Matt Henderson's around, or maybe Lee Kelly. I don't know, but maybe someone's around to be able to help them out, and that's okay. That's whoever's there to be able to be available to them, and anyone can come. Everyone's welcome, sort of feel. And hey, if we got to play, if we could have permanent seats in there on one side of the court so that we could have test matches there, great. If we could set up box seats down the other side and sell. VIP tickets to come and watch a test match come and be played there. Great. Awesome. But it's not about a money-making exercise. It's about, I just love indoor cricket. Got it. And I just want, like, the biggest thing for Auckland indoor cricket at the moment is that no one's got a place to go and train.
Oh, really?
Central might be a bit different. They might be able to find time to go and train on a Sunday morning and blah, blah, blah there.
But so it's still hard to get courts to train.
You can't get court time to train. Harbour doesn't have we've got a centre, but we don't really have a centre to go and train at, unfortunately. And that's not the centre's fault. It's not.
They're running it as a business.
It's not our fault. They're running it as a business, man.
100%.
But let's get back into the mode where we can actually have a home. And that's a dream for mine. And look, people have to be financially invested into it. There's no doubt. I can't do it by myself. If I won lotto tonight or tomorrow night, tonight.
And I have to say,
I'd love it.
Talking about culture, like the Kellys when they were running, we used to call it Kelly Indoor Sports, right? They were so good at that. Yeah. The lights were on, and I used to remember like this is costing, right? And you've got 4 courts going. We've got 4 courts doing batting, bowling, fielding, sprinting, running, whatever. But they got it. And clearly they were in a position where they had a big centre and were running a successful business. But it's not always the case. So it's harder on the 2 courts or the smaller centres to do that. So I think that players that want to play have to give back to the game now and help understand that for their success, the business has to work. Now, how can they give back to the centres and the business operating owners? That's an interesting discussion because the owners of the businesses want to have the Victor Davies discussions or whoever are the key guys in each area, because they are important people to help propel the business and be not potential role models, but in a way, yes. And that will help New Zealand indoor cricket if you guys can get that right, so that relationship is really strong. And that's something I learned and saw and was very impressed when I went to Valley.
It's funny because I ran this dream past someone who I know.
Do you have these dreams often, mate?
No, it's just I've had this discussion with Ben Peters, and he loves it.
BP.
And I've had a couple of discussions with a couple of other people, and the other one I said to someone once, we joked, and I was just like, it's going to be non-for-profit, and his comment back straight away was like, sorry bro, I'm out from that point. And it's like,
well, the old story in my business now is, how do we get the banks across that? Like, how do we set that up? And
it doesn't if we have to if you have to go for banks to do that sort of stuff, you're probably going to be a bit of trouble. But it's just like, I remember when when I first started at Cricket Patch, it was owned by one of the teams that used to play down there, like
is that right?
a C grade in-house team, bunch of old guys. They must have just loved indoor cricket at the time. They must have just been big fans of it. They owned the place, and I think that was when Walshy first started working for them. He'd have a better story on it, and then got owned. They sold it and got owned by someone else who ended up kicking. Walshy couldn't work with that particular person, and had to move on. But it's like there's enough smarts. Like, I'm a really dumb bastard, man. Like, I haven't got a lot about me. I've just got a bit of passion about me. I'm not a super smart guy when it comes to business and that. But there must be a way through where the amount of the people that we have got involved in our sport, that guys can work this out, man. Like, we've got super smart people playing indoor cricket. Guys,
100%.
Put your hand up and start coming up with your ideas for us. Work a way through this, because there's a way, man. Like, Harbour at the moment, I'll tell you a bit of a secret. Harbour at the moment, there's some guys at Harbour who want to talk to Auckland Council about getting this council-funded centre set up. Whether that happens or not, who knows? But it's an absolute no-brainer, because there's Auckland Badminton and Auckland Table Tennis or whatever paying $1 a year in a lease. $1 a year.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've got something set up with the council and it's legit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking conspiracy here. This is legit, where they've gone, hey, this is a really good community based activity centre for people to be able to come, and it's all part of community, so council are involved in it. We can do that with indoor cricket. There's no doubt about it, man. Like, it's an absolute for a lack of a better term, goldmine for the council to be involved in that and set something up. And there's some land becoming available soon, a really prominent netball site that is going to get moved, and council are going to roll that over and have it become something. And so we're trying to jump on that. We'll make a forecourt indoor cricket centre, indoor netball centre, indoor soccer centre here, where people can come in and be a part of it and be a community.
I go back to the banks, the investors, and this is what I do now. That's the
reality, right?
That is sadly the reality, and there's certainly the people around the sport that can help put the business plan together. I'd be happy to be part of that process, but I see this indoor cricket centre hut that we're playing at this weekend, and what a great business plan. The cricket doesn't feel like it's the key priority. It's part of the business plan. They've got kid zones and climbing walls, and they've made it a destination. And as us being cricketers, passionate cricketers, we don't quite see that. But as a business person walking into that centre, I see that as a business venture, and I think it's been done very cleverly. I think it's owned by Mukesh.
Yeah.
I think, who I remember from when I was living in Wellington. Very clever guy. Now, what you're talking about is something that you guys should probably bring in guys like Mukesh to talk about these opportunities, because they've set it up in Wellington and they are successful. They get how to gentrify a centre so that you can run a tournament, and you could potentially run it not at a loss, but as a break-even process.
That's all I want. Doesn't need to make money, man.
Because all of these other ancillary aspects of the business are running well.
I want really good umpires to come out of there. I want them to feel like they can come and get paid well.
I see Lee Kelly's umpiring nowadays. You could call
I said
him Lee.
good umpires.
Sorry.
Yeah, not guys who drink up in the stand. Apparently, Lee Kelly. Just saying. Hey, talk us about Singapore, man. I want to talk. I want to bring that up because I know you want to talk about it. So, apart obviously the in terms of your journey in indoor cricket has gone from helping manage a New Zealand side that went overseas, and you took your gear and your kit so that perhaps if you got if there were injuries,
I was hoping
you could perhaps be involved, which
was a while ago.
A laugh. It's really funny. But then you ended up in mid-Asia, and bots started getting involved in being able to set up indoor cricket in India, in Singapore. So what was happening in Singapore before that happened, though? Like were just expats playing there, or
there was a little bit of indoor cricket, but on courts that you would not get your head around. It wasn't an indoor cricket court; there were walls,
just gyms.
Concrete walls with an AstroTurf, and that was indoor cricket. They didn't have nets. And when bots moved to Singapore, we kind of joked a little bit about what if we set up a team and try to get guys involved and enter another team in the World Cup. And obviously I was a guy that had left in 2003, was my last North Island, leaving New Zealand, moving to Vietnam. Hadn't played indoor cricket for over 10 years, and I was like, bots, it's been a while, but it sounds fun, and bots is an entrepreneur, and if anyone's going to set up something, it's someone like Paul to do that.
Definitely.
There was definitely interest. I knew a number of expatriates as well as Singaporean and Indian guys that were good cricketers. And it kind of started from that, and then we ended up training in Johor Bahru, which is an hour and a half drive. We had to cross the border every time, get our passports checked, and the reality kicked in that bots somehow managed to get us accepted through World Indoor Cricket Federation, and we're off to the 2013 Masters over 35s. And the rest is history, and the boys are off to the World Cup this year. Led by Karthik, the captain, and the boys. So 3 men's World Cups. I think we have a ladies team that's been entered, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool.
We do have a pool of juniors for future under 22s. I'd love to help with that in the future. But to go from nothing to entering a men's team or a masters team to start with, we backed that up with 2014 World Cup here in Wellington. And then Dubai in 2017. We've had a few Asia Cups, Sri Lanka India series, New Zealand sent aside in 2019 for the Asia Cup, which was amazing on a one-court arena. I think the Kiwi guys are a bit sort of astounded at what we were dealing with. But
Garrett draws up one side, open on one side.
Hot as hell, people passing out because it's just so hot. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you now have Singapore playing indoor cricket, and hopefully in the future we see Thailand entering, we see America coming into the sport, and others, and that's the whole.
It's great.
That's the whole opportunity. Cool. If you had an opportunity yourself to play, dare I say, Masters in Houston, Texas, in 2024, 2025, you'd probably put your hand up, right? It'd be pretty cool to play against the Americans in indoor cricket. And so I think, again, what bots has done is just added another dimension to the sport. And, we had our trials and tribulations, but we had a few test wins, won a few games against Sri Lanka, India. We didn't beat the top 3, but who knows, in 10 years' time, hopefully Singapore, with the young guys coming through, can be competitive.
You have to talk about this, but it gets a little bit, and for such a small nation, and where for things to work, probably everyone needs to be on the same page. And I think Dubai are going through this a little bit. UAE are going through this a little bit at the moment. And I'm not saying this from any knowledge. I'm just this
Right.
fishbowl looking in sort of thing. But there's a bit going on in terms of politics, which is people, I guess there's a bit of power struggle going on about the direction of Singapore indoor cricket in particular, and about the direction it should take. And maybe there's you've had some struggles there? And
Look, I think every country, whether it's New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, I'm sure there's the challenges. I was always, and I learnt from Robbie Bird. Robbie said it's all about playing. Let the guys that want to manage and run the sport do what they want to do, but our job's just to play.
Yeah, but you had value off the court for those guys, surely, because of your business ability, and where you've gone in a career sense, with business and understanding of how that all operates. You had a lot to be able to offer them, but you're a white guy in Singapore, man. Like, was it going to work? Like, I don't know. Did you have a few little issues around that, or?
Look, I think like any country, I've worked across Asia now for 20 years.
You've been there a long time, man.
You have to respect, learn, understand the procedures, the policies.
And the culture of them and the way they operate as well, right? Yeah, absolutely, man. I get it. I absolutely get it.
No different to, I guess, the guys in Australia, where it's New South Wales, Queensland, so on and so forth, right? It's different territorial rules, politics.
Rule a lot of Australia now, mate.
You know what I mean?
They're so strong there, bro.
And then we, in 2014, had jurisdiction where we were governed by the SCA, Singapore Cricket Association. That was a big change. That was massive to have their endorsement countrywide. We got PR, we got coverage, but that was a whole different monster. And I'm not sure we were quite ready for it, and to meet their expectations. We were sort of running and learning as we went to what they wanted. And indoor cricket was new, right? And we were wearing the SCA next to indoor cricket, and that was very protected, very valued. There's a lot of history around that. And so trying to educate, I guess, the country on what indoor cricket's about was quite difficult, because we couldn't show them anything because we didn't have a court back then. We didn't really have any ability to demonstrate until we got a court. And thankfully, Murali was a guy that loved the sport, invested. We had a one quarter.
Yeah, we should talk about Murali a little bit, Murali Govind, because he's, you're going to talk hopefully a little bit about him, but I've heard his name in really positive light over the years, that being a guy that really has given so much of his effort and energy towards indoor cricket.
We wouldn't have had the ability to play. We didn't have a court. And I remember conversations early on where we were travelling every Saturday, Colsey, to Malaysia to train.
Wow.
And not in an indoor cricket court. It was an outdoor court that was covered for the Moraine. And then travel back. So it was like a 4-hour journey that we did. And Murali loved the game, saw it, and I think saw a business opportunity. He is an incredibly successful businessman. His son loved indoor cricket, probably motivated him a little bit.
Cool.
And he built a one quarter in Singapore, in the first one quarter. He's the pioneer. And so we partnered with him, and we got Singapore Cricket Association on board, and got into the World Cup. And 2013 had a Masters team. 2014 had a men's team. And to this day, we're going to keep going. We've got junior teams, we've got ladies teams. But yeah, Murali is the guy that got his wallet out and said, I love the game and see an opportunity commercially, but also 50-50.
Passion of the sport.
It's passion of the sport. Are people going to play this? I don't know. Outdoor cricket's pretty popular in Singapore, but indoor sports, it's not big. You know, it's hot as hell. It's outdoor netball, it's touch rugby, it's golf. So indoor sports is really only martial arts, which is massive. So he took a risk, and I hope for him the risk paid off.
Yeah, man. So how are we going to get into this? So I understand that
Rumor, you heard a rumor.
I heard a rumor. I heard a rumor that there's the possibility that there could be some sort of memorial, some sort of initiation go forward in a way that we can celebrate a really good friend of ours, in Brian Herman, who passed away
last year.
Who passed away last year, and we lost him, and it was obviously we've gathered around his brother Paul, who's so special to us as well, for the last sort of few months, and in our own way. But there's an initiation, hopefully, that we can sort of get something across the line where we can sort of celebrate Brian in a way and what he gave to indoor cricket in New Zealand.
Yeah, mate, I think PH, if I can speak for him for half a minute, it's a bit more than that. It's about what Brian stood for and the challenges he went through and just the whole mental illness sort of stuff. And we have this belief, or we know, that there's others out there that have similar challenges to what Brian had. So yes, Brian was one of the youngest ever to play for New Zealand at 18, did this, did that, but had an amazing job, was one of the most successful boat builders, skiing, everything he did, he was successful at. However, he still had his demons and had challenges. And so how, as a community, from a New Zealand indoor cricket standpoint, can we create what I don't want to sort of coin foundation as the word, but there's so many other people, I'm sure, playing this weekend that are not at where Brian was at in terms of the dark times, but having their challenges. And how can we address that as a New Zealand indoor cricket community? We talk about being close, but what can we do for the guys and girls, the juniors, the seniors that have those challenges? Education is one. Talking about it competently, confidently, as we would talk about challenges with our parents, with our wives, with our kids. Let's not make it such a difficult subject to talk about, because that's not recognising and respecting Brian. You know, Brian was a brash cricketer, go-getter, MVP this, MVP that, want to win. But I had Brian with me in Bangkok before he passed, and he actually really wanted to help educate people and stop what happened to him before it got to him. Now, how do we do that? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not as well versed in this as other people, medically speaking. So I just want to initiate a starting point that the New Zealand community, that I know will rally around it and bring in the support, because Colsey, New Zealand indoor cricket as a community, it's such a strong community. It's so powerful. And as a parent, you're a parent, if your daughter was going through this, would you not want to have someone that she could reach out to and say, hey, I'm struggling, I don't know how to talk about this with mum and dad, but could I talk to you? There's so many people like that, right? Now, how do we create the opportunity for people to reach out? And it's education, it's training, it's development. And so how do we start? It's each centre, whether it's North Harbour, whether it's Alice Street, that has, an 0800 number to start with. I'm just saying basics. We build up, and we have a 5-year plan, we have a 10-year plan, where players could say, I'm a bit lost. I'm the best player at Alice Street. I'm the best player at Pakaranga or wherever. But I'm struggling with this, and I can't talk to my parents about this. Who do I call? And, I use Tony Watkins, who's head of the Federation at the moment for New Zealand, or the council. Tony, who do I speak to? Because people don't know where to go, but they do feel comfortable within the environment of indoor cricket because they're playing. You know, and we have such a strong influence over people, particularly, the senior players. There's respect. You know, there's always that hierarchy. It's like a company. There's a lot of hierarchical respect in indoor cricket. So, if the tables were turned and I was a junior cricketer and I said, Colsey, I'm not in a good place. Who do I speak to? You don't know how to answer that today. But in the future, if we gave you and we helped script that, we can help people. And I know that Brian and Paul Herman would want that for others so that he did not pass in vain. Brian was a competitor at the highest levels. And he wants the best for everyone. He did, right? So how do we pass that on? And that for me would be the success of really respecting Brian. It's a bit heavy, I know. Sorry.
Yeah, it's emotional, man. It's emotional. Because not only I know what Brian went through, but I know what Paul's been going through as well as being his best mate and the guy. It's just been those two sometimes, you know. And you're right. You know, like just being able to offer those avenues of support, and you're right again about indoor cricket, especially in New Zealand, as it is very close. Like whether we admit it or not, we're such a small community and we're family, man. Like all of our competitors are the closest, almost the closest family in terms of sport that we could all sit down for 3 hours, like you and I could do right now, and sit down for a chat. Like I could grab Toddy Watson, and we could go and have a chat. We barely know each other, but we know each other inside out. All at the same time, because it's so much in common. Any rugby player, any All Black player could go and talk with a Frenchman for 3 hours because they've got so much in common. They've endured the same journey along the way, albeit on the other side of the world in a different environment, but it's the same journey. So you've got a lot of a lot to relate to there. In mental health is being spoken about a lot more. Sometimes it's being used as an excuse. I think for some people it's an easy way to go. Sometimes for some people, but the true people who really are suffering from it, not to detract from those people. And I can say that because I've been down that road, and
you had tough times.
I've had some tough times.
Yep.
I've had some tough times back in the day, and I've had some tough times recently as well. And so I can talk to this stuff. That it is really important that if there's 20 people in front of you who might be able to help, one of them will be able to help you, and that's really important. And if there, it might be a basic phone number that one day you go, you know what, I've got nothing left. It's just that could be my first step.
Yeah, look, I think talking to the family, we talked about a foundation, which is very much based on education and giving people opportunities to understand what they could confront if given the circumstances. And there's various different levels, and I'm not an expert on it, but I know, talking to Brian and Paul, that this is what they wanted, so that people felt like there was an opportunity to talk to someone and not go straight to the doctor, not go straight to the hospital, not take medication, but where am I at? And step one, who do I talk to? And I think in the structure of indoor cricket, where, hey coach, not bowling well, not batting well, not fielding well, so we don't necessarily think or believe that everyone in indoor cricket is going to become a mental health expert. We're not saying that. We're saying let's recognise there's an issue out there. If we could put an award forward where it's a most valuable player in recognition of Brian Herman, whether it's the most gritty, determined player of the tournament or player of the finals. I think I was catching up with Hendo yesterday, and he thought player of the finals was a good way of that grittiness. So you're not MVP, but you had a blinder in the final. You just had the mental fortitude to really get through, and you battered the house down. And you weren't the batter of the tournament, you weren't the fielder of the tournament, the bowler of the tournament, but you were the player of the final. I thought that was a great idea. Craig Foster had another idea of, well, maybe it's just the guy that doesn't, or the girl that doesn't get the stats, but they're playing out of their skin and they're playing 3 levels above where they've been at for the last couple of years, and they're not going to get picked for New Zealand, but they've just absolutely killed the tournament or killed the semis and the finals, and that's the Brian Herman Award. And I thought that was also a great idea. So my suggestion was, let's put something forward to the council. Let's let the brains trust of indoor cricket and the senior players of Lee Kelly, Craig, Brendan Donkers. Let's get all of those guys involved, because I'm not.
Paul Anderson as well is really
Paul
good
Anderson,
around that sort of stuff.
Had a great chat with him yesterday morning,
he's
and
amazing.
the council.
So good.
And I'm just too far away from it being in Singapore, Colsey, but there's been a great response from it.
Awesome.
I also feel that naturally, if there's such a welcome to this idea, get PH involved, and come up with what the right award could be. I think it's going to be announced this weekend on Sunday night at prize giving, but we're not going to have the award ready. We're not going to be there yet, but it's a step in the right direction, Colsey. And if Brian and Paul and I can make a difference for people out there that are struggling and want to put their hand up and say, Colsey, Chiz, I'm struggling. Who should I talk to? That's great. That's a step forward. And I think that's really what Brian would want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some heavy stuff, man, and I think
Doesn't need to be.
No, well,
it's about celebration.
It is for some people, man. It is, and it's up to the individual who's going through it at the time. And
100%.
I think, to your point, I think you're right. I think PH has probably got all the answers for us about how we could best celebrate Brian and what he stood for, because I think we've all got ideas. Oh, okay, 2 or 3 ideas running through my head straight away, you know. And
there you go.
And you've already spoken to people who've got great ideas. Maybe PH has actually probably got the ultimate thought of how we could celebrate his bro and what he stood for in indoor, and what he stood for different players. Like for me, I can only talk for what Brian Herman stood for me, and that for me he created. He allowed me to be the best bowler I could ever be as my keeping partner.
He was one of the very few people that could catch you.
Yeah, but he did. He did, and it's because he told me what to bowl pretty much every ball, so that we could communicate. And we played in a game set up, in a game that really relied on the keeper knowing exactly what was coming down to them, especially from a bowler who was going to probably beat the bat a little bit more than maybe others. So he needed to know what was happening, and so he called it. He took full control of it and told me what he wanted to come down almost. And most of 99% of the time it was correct. What he called was correct.
So if you break that down, he's already smarter than us, because he knew where the ball was going. He was telling you where he wanted.
Agreed. He had already worked the batter out. He knew it was going to work. Look, he and I personally had a really fractured relationship. We didn't get on, and I'll take a total ownership of that. We were probably tough individuals, and I was maybe quite
competing for spots probably as well.
Maybe. I don't think we were directly competing for spots, but I think that I was quite an intense sort of character, trying to prove myself 100% of the time in my life when I didn't need to, and so I became quite an intense sort of person. And he wanted to be someone who was really highly competitive, but otherwise, if we were off the court, really just chill out, just relax, man. He was
good at that.
Yeah, he was great. He was awesome at that. For a guy who was really switched on for a young guy, because he was younger than us, right? And he was really switched on for that. And Brian, I wish I could have got on with them, but we didn't. And there was mates of mine. You're one of them. Jeff Butler's another one of them. That he got on with really well. That was really close with, and I know that what happened with Brian really has affected you guys. You know, really, I totally appreciate what's happened has affected you guys a lot. You know, and I don't want to be the guy that didn't quite get on with Brian. I want to be the guy that actually really respected Brian and really appreciated who he was as a person, not just as an indoor cricketer, man. Like that was 2% of his life.
Mm.
He was an amazing boat builder.
It was actually 80% of his life for a good part until.
Yeah, but as a person, life's full of a whole bunch of it. He was an amazing boat builder. You'd bang on, you know. He was an amazing son. He was an amazing brother. He was an amazing mate to a lot of people. He was a really cool cat who liked to get on the piss a lot and just really chill out and just have good fun times, you know. And I wasn't a part of that with him, and that's fine. That's okay, man. You don't.
But he was capable of catching the ball when you bowled it. Not many people could do that.
He was capable of
and that was when
taking a lot of outs off
when
me.
you were young and you
I
were
thank
quick.
him for that. And PH, if you're out there, mate, I love you to bits, mate, and we all love you, and really appreciate who your bro was, and hopefully one day we'll get to. I'd love to podcast Paul if he was ever up for it, and it would be pretty amazing. But yeah. Pretty amazing.
No need to be sad, mate. It's about celebration, and I think that's what the key that Paul and I want for this. Maybe it becomes a foundation, maybe it doesn't, but the key is just to let other people out there know that, hey, you're not alone, and it's not weird to feel like that, and it's awkward maybe to talk to mum and dad about that, or to boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it might be.
But maybe there's a mentor off to the side or someone who you can look up to just help you through it a little bit.
Yeah, and it might not be an expert, but it's someone that can put you in contact, and that's what we want to try and achieve out of all of this. So, I remember talking to Brian about this, back in the day, that it's very difficult to know who to talk to and where you go to. So, look, let's make this a happy ending podcast, and we believe that by putting the right structure in place, with great support from the council, that we can really help people. Cheers, Coles.
Cheers, man.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Cheers, brother.
Good
Love
to see
you,
you.
son.
Love you too.
Cheers, man. Awesome.